Hello and welcome to Board Game Gumbo. Today we're unboxing The Adventures of Robin Hood from KOSMOS Games. This is a cooperative game for 2 to 4 players that plays in about 60 minutes per adventure, although it is a scenario-based game and there are several scenarios involved. So I'm personally very excited for this game, one because I'm a big fan of Robin Hood in general, but also because this is from the same designer of Legends of Andor, Michael Menzel, and I'm a big fan of that game as well. So I have high hopes for this one. And then you will see as well that there is a mechanic in this game that is very interesting to me. So one of the things about this game is it's very accessible. It's sort of a lightweight or lighter weight scenario-based campaign game. But here you see this is not your rule book, but this is sort of your starting sheet, right? So it says if you're playing the game for the first time, just read this starter sheet and then start playing. And this is literally just double-sided. That's how easy it is to get into this game. So it'll play 2 to 4 players. You are playing as either Robin Hood, Maid Marian, Little John, or Will Scarlet. And each one of these figures also has these sort of movement figures we'll take a look at in a minute. And then it very briefly explains how movement works, how interaction works with the different elements of the board, and then also how activation works. And that's really all you need to know to do the first scenario. So then it says, okay, now that you know all of this, go to page 8 of the storybook and start the game. You don't need to read the rule book. You don't need anything else. But because we're taking a look at the game, we're going to take a look at the rule book, obviously. So again, 4 characters you can play as. You also have figures for the bad guy, the sheriff, Guy of Gisborne. Game board. This bag here is for these discs. These discs determine whose action it is. So you notice that there's 1 disc for each player color. There's 2 discs for Guy, and then there's some of these gray discs, which are wild cards essentially. And then a couple other pieces as well as quite a few little wooden cubes. But this is a very short rulebook as well. And so again, it's explaining movement. It's telling you the difference between the different illustrations on the board. So some of spaces on the board are in light and some are in dark, and that actually matters. The different way to interact with the board, and so on. So how the turn structure works, what you can do on your turn, how you fight other people, because sometimes you have to fight guards, and so on. So let's take a look at our board here, which is what this is. First of all, I absolutely love the artwork on this. But this board is another reason why I was so excited for this game. And it's something that I really haven't seen. It's, some other games have done things that are similar. But this, I think, is in sort of a league of its own. At least so far, I assume it's going to be pretty heavily copied going forward. So here we have our game board. So we're gonna have to put it together. It's a bit like a puzzle, but you'll notice that it's dual layered. So let's go ahead and pop this out. This is sort of our player piece. It reminds us of how movement works. All those things that basically the rule book were explaining to us are items that we can obtain. And then on the back, we have even more items that we can obtain. These are all the things you can get. But we're going to put this board together real quick. Like so. And so from what I understand, right, so there's a reason why we have to assemble this. And I think it has to do with just the way that this double layer board works. It has a pretty good chance of warping. And if they built it to where it folded out like a normal board, that would just sort of amplify that problem. So instead, we're going to assemble it. And I'm going to stop there because this is becoming a bit of a table hog. It's a pretty big board. And I will mention that you can already sort of feel the warpage. It's not horrible, but you can actually see, or maybe you can see down here in this corner, that there's a little bit of play here already, sort of in that corner. So yeah, so there's a little bit of warpage already. Again, it's not too bad, but if you are the type of person where your board has to be like super flat, this is probably going to give you, not fits, but you're going to notice. But I absolutely love this board, and there's for a couple different reasons, right? So first of all, the most obvious is that it is that dual layer board, right? So you see all these little pieces here, and when certain events happen, you're going to flip these pieces over. So say something happens and it tells me to flip over this piece, right? So now there's a guard there. He wasn't there before, but now he's there, and now that's something I have to deal with. And you notice again that on the back side, the artwork matches up, which is just very nice. But you notice that there's bigger ones. I don't want to flip over too many of them because it's going to give away certain things. But you can see that there's different ones of different sizes that do different things. Let's take a look at this one real quick. So this one, there's now, I don't know, a traveling merchant there, maybe somebody heading to the castle. And some of these things are story elements, right? So this says number 16 on it. As you're going through the story, it might say, okay, flip tile number 16. Some of them are actually interactions. So you see on here, this little hay barrel here has a question mark on it. If I have a figure that is touching this element of the board, I can interact with this on my turn. And that's going to give me the option of potentially flipping it over, and that card is gone somewhere, right? Maybe I moved it. Maybe I now have access to it. I can put it where I want to, something like that. Maybe I can use it to sort of sneak my way into the castle. Maybe I climbed up in the back of it, something like that. And you see these sort of elements all over the board, and they mean something. And that, to me, is really interesting. The fact that these things on the board aren't just there for aesthetic reasons. They have an actual interaction with them. They have a purpose within a game. And that's probably best seen with the shadows. So you see the shadows on the board, and the shadows make sense, right? So these trees are creating shadows. The walls are creating shadows within the castle. The shadows make sense in the scope of this board, this scene that they're presenting, but they also have a mechanical aspect to them. So when I'm in the shadows as Robin Hood or Little John or whatever, I can hide myself from any guards. So if this guard was here, right, and I'm in the forest here within the shadow, this guard can't see me because the shadow, the forest is providing me cover. But if I'm out in the open where there is no shadow, this guard can potentially see me. So there's a mechanical aspect to the artwork of the board that makes it more than just artwork, right? It makes it more than just it looking nice. It actually has a mechanical aspect to it. And that to me is really fascinating and something that I think a lot of games are going to copy and hopefully improve upon. But so that's our board, and I rambled a bit there and I apologize, but this is really interesting to me. Our other components here, so we have our movement pieces, or some of our movement pieces. So this is Little John. Every character has 2 pieces, and essentially the way it works is on your turn, you can move your character. So let's say that Little John was there and I want to move him. I have these other pieces, which kind of have these little like a wake to them, right? And that's how I'm going to determine where I can move Little John. So I'm going to place these pieces out. They have to basically touch, you're creating a train or whatever. And then I'm going to place my new piece, and that is where I have moved Little John, right? And so obviously I can move him less than that. I'd probably want to keep him in the shadows, for instance. But that's how you determine where your character can move. It's sort of like the ruler that war games use, but in a meeple figure. So again, interesting. Something I haven't seen before. We've got our bag here. Our bag is for our different little discs. The discs represent the different characters. So you've got Robin Hood, Little John, Maid Marian, Will Scarlet. This is the sheriff. The red is the bad guys, the guards, and what have you. Guy has his own discs, which obviously won't be in there at the very beginning. And then you've got these gray discs, which are kind of like wild cards. Essentially, if you draw a gray disc, you choose which character you want to move. So if I'll put all of those in there and I draw one out, and now the bad guys are going to go, right? So the bad guys take their action. And then I draw another one out, and I get to choose which good guy is going to go. And then so on, Maid Marian goes, and so on, until you've emptied the bag, and then you're going to fill it back up. So that is how actions are determined. We have more pieces. Where are our characters? More pieces for our characters. This is Will Scarlet, as well as his movement pieces. These are just extra pieces. So there's a raven and there's like an extra movement piece. I don't know exactly how those interact. And then we've got Maid Marian, and finally Robin Hood. We've got some other pieces here. So we've got an arrow, which I don't know, but there's an arrow. We've got some little hourglass pieces. So the way that these work is like, say this guard was out on patrol and I was in his area. So Robin Hood is in his area. I'm not in shadow, so I have to have a fight with this guard. And say I defeat him, right? So the guard goes away. I'm going to flip him back over because he's no longer there. But I'm also going to put one of these hourglass tokens on him just so that he doesn't flip over again right away, right? So you're not going to get stuck in this loop of fighting the guard and then he comes back out and I have to fight him again. This is just a little tracker for this track down here, which I don't know if you can see, but there's a little tracker down at the bottom. And then we've got cubes. And cubes are used to determine when you've bought something. So again, that little board we saw earlier, like so. If Little John bought a buckler, right, we'd put Little John's cube there to say that he has a buckler. Because this game doesn't have like any cards or anything, so there's no equipment cards. This is it. Everything you've seen so far, plus the storybook, is everything in this game. So let's talk about the storybook. First of all, any game that includes a book, I'm excited for it. We got a little reminder here of the different spots on the board. It actually tells you which ones are guards, which is kind of helpful. It has bookmarks, as you can see down here, because you will be bookmarking places as you go through the story. So we got a little red bookmark and we got a little yellow bookmark, and I can't quite get them out of there, so we'll leave that there for now. In the front, you have an explanation of all the different equipment that's used in the game. And then you get right into the story. So these are all the scenarios. There is, I believe, a delineation. The story branches about in the middle. So I think the escape, a safe hiding place, gold for King Richard, and a tough decision, you always do those. And then they branch out. So you've got 4 that you always do. And then you're either going to do these 3 or you're going to do these 3 or some combination of those. So a single playthrough is going to be 7 scenarios. That includes the escape, which is the introductory one, which is, you're probably not going to be doing a ton, right? But you got 7 scenarios. The first 4 are always going to be the same. The last 3, you have 2 different paths that you can take. So there's a little bit of replayability, right? Also, within a scenario, you're going to be doing different things on the board. You're not going to be doing everything. So there's a little bit of replayability, probably 2 games in total. If we are assuming that the 60 minutes that they put on the box is 1 scenario, then that is, 14 hours of content, which is pretty good. So again, chapter 1, the escape, you go straight into it, right? So this is what you're trying to accomplish. It tells you what you're trying to do. It gives you a little story prompt up here. It has different events that happen. I like the pencil artwork. It's, very old school Robin Hood, theme to me. So I like that. And again, this is the first scenario, but it's also really your introduction to the game. So it's kind of explaining mechanics. So I like that. Obviously, you have story choices, different things you can do. When you get to different places on the board, again, you can interact with them. So here we've gone into chapter 2 already. So this is the second scenario, and this one's probably going to be substantially longer than the first one. I don't really want to get into too many spoilers. I'm just kind of looking at what else is in here. I believe there's our bookmark. There we go. So there's our bookmarks. Let's see what else we can look at. So here is sort of here's a representation of the story, okay? So again, you start with 4, always the same 4. You have 2 different branches, and then it's going to meet back up at the last encounter. So still a 7 part scenario. And this page you'll actually reference fairly often because the events that occur are going to change depending on what scenario you're on. So say you go to space 24, right? The event that happens in space 24 is going to be different if you're doing a safe hiding place as opposed to if you're doing the weapon, right? So it's going to be a different event. There's going to be different options. There's going to be different outcomes. So again, you know, it seems like there's a considerable amount of content. And then we have, don't want to do that. That's the final story. But then on the back here, we've got sort of explanations of the different events. So the examine action, the defeat action, when you have to fight a guard, special features. So that's it. That's everything you get in a copy of The Adventures of Robin Hood from KOSMOS.